Welcome to the 2023 South African Library Week launch. We will be starting with our national anthem, and that will be followed by a video that will play before we can continue with our program. Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we just play the video, just some house rules that please remain muted at all times, except when you're going to talk. You can put up on your camera and then you switch it off as soon as you are done. And we can put our charts or comments and questions on the chat so that we can manage that in terms of questions and comments. For now, let's move on to play the video.
Humans have told stories for as long as we can remember. The stories are used to share news, amplify the accomplishments of heroes, and pass on cultural traditions and transfer knowledge and history. Libraries have been central in collecting, preserving, and sharing these stories. The first library in South Africa dates back to 20 March 1818 with the establishment by proclaiming of the first public library, the South African Public Library, now known as the National Library of South Africa. Libraries are central to communities. They provide not only access to books, but also a space for knowledge. The 4IR has shifted the landscape in how we tell these stories, which have contributed to global knowledge, memory, and communication. Libraries in South Africa are transforming the stories that they share and how they share them. This includes the platforms that are used to tell these stories, whether they are recreational, educational, or historical. Despite the challenges libraries are facing, libraries have persevered and continue to add to the good stories that they tell. These stories include the value of libraries that adds to the community. It highlights how libraries have embraced the 4IR and how libraries support the sustainable development goals. Librarians understand the power of storytelling. A good story draws you in, shows you different ways to think, and touches your mind, heart, and life. It's stories like these that will help the public understand and connect with their libraries. These stories will also help in highlighting the importance and the value of libraries to all. Let's take ownership and use storytelling to communicate more effectively with our communities. Libraries have a powerful story to tell.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have seen how libraries play a role in communities, how we communicate with communities as well through storytelling. My name is Mukhadi, and I'm also known as Rebecca Signolo. I will be your program director today at this event. Allow me to acknowledge the following people: the LIASA President, Mr. Nazim Hadi, the LIASA Representative Council members, the Executive Committee members, the DDG for the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, our DSEC officials, the National Librarian and the CEO, Mr. Gepi Madumo and the team, our past LIASA presidents, distinguished guests and speakers, our LIASA members and potential members, the friends of the library, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. History has taught us or tells us how stories were communicated through oral storytelling. They used oral. At some point, they combined with gestures and expressions. When I grew up as a child or grandchild, we will be gathering around the fire before bedtime, and that's where stories will be told. We will be visualizing what is it, or what has been told. And I believe that's where storytelling originated, with visual stories. Stories were passed from generation to generation by word of mouth. There was then a shift to words formed into narratives, which include written, printed, and typed stories. All those written, printed, and typed stories were classified, cataloged, stored, and now are cherished as books, any type of material in our libraries. Hence the theme for 2023 South African Library Week says, libraries telling powerful stories. We have a lined up of powerful stories to be told today. Now, let's gather around the fire, relax, and listen tentatively as powerful stories are being told. I will now call upon our first speaker on the program, who will be doing the opening remarks and purpose of the South African Library Week. And that is our president of LIASA, Mr. Nazim Hadi. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for introducing me and for welcoming all the guests. To the Deputy Director General of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, to the CEO of the National Library and his staff, Mr. Gepi Madumo, to the LIASA Executive Committee members present, the LIASA Representative Council members present, our very special guest this morning who will be part of our program, to Parsley as a presidents, to you, the members, part of this occasion this morning, and everybody else, all protocol observed, and I welcome you to the launch of South African Library Week. An annual event which I think we all look forward to, and we all really look forward to actually celebrating during this week. We really showcase what it is we are all about, what libraries do, what we are looking forward to doing into the future, as well as celebrating what we have done up to this point. And I think that's underlining the theme that we have for this year, libraries telling powerful stories. As our MC has indicated, stories and storytelling has been an integral part of what is associated with a library. We collect stories, we share stories, we tell stories. When I look at the programming, for example, that my own institution is offering for this coming week, a lot of it is focused on storytelling and the celebration of telling the stories that we have collected in our libraries. But I think that more importantly, and as importantly, are the stories that people tell about us as libraries, tell about us as librarians. And very often it is those stories that actually endear and cement our role in communities across the world, not just in South Africa. We see currently in the United States attacks upon librarians, upon libraries, to the very fundamental core of what a library is and what it is supposed to be doing. And as a librarian, it actually angers me when I look at librarians having to defend themselves against doing what they're actually paid to do every day. I don't know about you, but I actually really get angry when I read those stories every day. And it seems to be getting worse. We look at a country like the UK, where libraries are under extreme threat of closure. And I don't think we have to go very far. I mean, even in South Africa, we face the threat of libraries closing. We deal with the very badly underfunding of libraries in South Africa. And it is at those moments when those things happen, not just here, but across the world, where we see communities coming up and actually telling the story of a library, telling the story of what a library is actually mean to them, what a library continues to mean to them. And we recently saw it in Cape Town, for example, when there was the threat of a library closing, and the community came to the fore and started telling politicians about why libraries shouldn't close, why that particular library shouldn't close, what that library has actually meant to that community, what it continues to mean to that community. And it is those stories that are the powerful stories. Those are the stories that we need to collect, and we need to get better at telling those stories to the decision makers, to our community at large, to people who underrate the value of a library. Because we live in a world today where people have the perception, why do we need a library? We have Google, we now have AI actually taking over. Every day you see a new story about the wonders of AI. And don't get me wrong, I think it is amazing what it is actually doing. But in this world where we live, where technology supposedly trumps everything, the value of a library is questioned all the time. Why do we need libraries? When at the click of a button, you can download a book, you can find information, and why would I actually need to go to this dusty place when I can actually do all of these things? I'm here to tell you that I've seen the proofs of the DG Mag that will be launched sometime over this weekend, and celebrating libraries throughout this year on the IRL website. And I look at the stories that the people have told in the DigiMag, students, young people talking about what a library has actually meant to them. And it fills me with joy, it fills me with hope that despite all of these technological advancements, the value of a library is still understood, is still seen, and is still celebrated. And so as we kick off this week, that is South African Library Week, I encourage all of you to tell the stories of libraries, of your library, of libraries that you have been a part of, that have meant something to you, that mean something to the communities that you serve. And when I say communities, it doesn't matter whether you're a public, academic, a special, a school library. People all have stories to tell about libraries. It's time we started collecting those stories. It's time we started amplifying those stories. And I want to encourage you to actually collect those stories, to actually put it out there so that everybody knows what the value of a library is. It is no use we collect these stories anymore and we talk about it when we sit in our staff rooms and we say, oh, how wonderful we are. Look at what people actually say about us. We need to amplify the stories and tell the stories of libraries in South Africa. And we need to put it on a global stage. We are part of a global profession. We are part of the push to tell the library story on a global stage in the form, for example, of the Sustainable Development Goals, something that we have not been really good at in the last couple of years since this initiative started. But we gave a commitment at last year's conference that we will start really pushing for that. And yes, there's been a lot of other things that come up along the way, but it is something that as the Liasa Exco, we are quite committed to. And so I want you to collect these stories because we need to put it on this global stage to say, here we are, these are South African libraries, because despite the underfunding of libraries, despite the lack of staff, the lack of money, the lack of whatever you want to name, and the list is endless, librarians do amazing things every single day. I look at what libraries do on Facebook, and I'm amazed at what we do. I'm amazed at the lives that we touch. I always look forward to looking at, for example, what the University of Pretoria has its students say about its libraries. I look forward to, in the Eastern Cape, where we have that school doing that, that whole initiative every year where young people actually talk about the library and showcasing different ways that the library is actually used by them and how books influence them. But these are things that we look forward to. And so we should take those as examples. And if you haven't started collecting the stories, if you haven't started telling the stories, this week is the week where I want to say, let's all pledge to tell the library story. And on that note, I wish you all a wonderful South African Library Week. Let's go out there and celebrate who we are, what we do, and most importantly, celebrate the people who make use of our services. Because without them and without the librarians who provide those services, that means nothing to us. We would be nothing if people did not use us. We would be nothing if librarians weren't there to provide these services. So, happy South African Library Week 2023, and continue having libraries telling powerful stories. Thank you very much. Over to the MC.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hadi, the Liasa president, for having to encourage us to all collect stories, and so that we are also able to put us on the map, on the global stage, and also to showcase what our libraries do. Indeed, we normally just don't share out there, and as libraries and information services, we need to put our stories out there, tell the stories so that the world can know about us. Thank you so much for the powerful stories and the encouragement. We're now moving on to our next item. We will be playing the marimba band. So over to that, and let's listen and enjoy. Thank you. As they are preparing to play it nicely, we would like to again remind people to mute and put off their cameras. Thank you. Wow. Wow. I'm still trying to catch my breath. I don't know of you, but I was busy and I was thinking, and yeah, I wish we can go on and on and on. This is another way of getting the message. It soothes our soul and it sharpens our minds and it takes us places. This is another way of telling a story through music. Thank you very much, Marimba Band. I think they deserve another hand of applause. So in that way, they were ushering our motivational speaker, the author, an award-winning international artist, a prominent disability activist in South Africa, who's going to share with us storytelling, identity, relationships, and culture. And we would have seen the teaser during the course of the week that was shared online about none other than Mr. Musa Zulu. So this is a way of ushering you to really share with us what you have as you are telling your story from your side as well. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Zulu.
And thank you very much to all of you for the beautiful invitation. My name is Musa Zulu. I was paralyzed in a car accident in 1995. And amazingly, living through life for 23 years, because I was 23 when I was paralyzed, I never really had a good story to tell. And amazingly, disability gave me that story to tell. And in many ways, gave me a sense of identity. I remember that the first thing that I did when I was pronounced paralyzed was ask myself, where to from here? And I knew that in order to find direction to the future, I was going to have to start telling a different story. A different story that says, number one, what has happened, what has been happening in the 23 years of my life, the first 23 years of my life. And number two, what was going to be happening on a daily basis as I lived through this new life towards a future. And the book that I wrote out of that experience was The Language of Me. Please bear with me. Let me just grab a copy so that you can see it. The Language of Me came out in 2004. And I've prepared a presentation that I'm going to be giving to you based on this book. Not only in terms of what the book was all about, but in terms of how the book sits squarely under the bracket of storytelling. And you will allow me, it's not every day that I ever get to read my presentations, but for this time around, I decided, let me write it down so that I can read it and share these notes with you afterwards. The title of my presentation is Storytelling, Identity, Relationships, and Culture. And I would like to believe that it relates to the theme of this gathering, which is libraries telling good stories. Introduction. Why did I go with the title, The Language of Me? The Language of Me was published by the University of KwaZulu-Natal Press in 2004. This was about 9 years after I had become paraplegic as a result of a car crash that occurred when I was 23 years old back in 1995. I titled this memo as such because I was aiming to tell a story about my identity, relationships, and culture as a newly disabled person riding a wheelchair in a changing society. I was going to be narrating this tale in my own words, terms, and imagery. In that way, I would be actively involved in a fast-paced process of reshaping and adapting myself to my new realities and realms, and also reflecting on the revealing challenges and open possibilities of my new world of disability, both in my mind and through time and space. It was through telling my story in this book that I discovered and realized the power of language in storytelling. Language does not only create and convey messages and meanings of our experiences, cultural identities, and social realities, but also assists us in adapting to and embracing our ever-changing paradigms and circumstances. Language also marshals the outcomes of our thoughts and actions, which can either uplift or relegate an individual or community to a higher or lower medium of self or collective awareness, expression, and actualization, results which can or cannot ultimately influence the birth and celebration of new cultural identities, ideologies, and movements. Let's talk about identity and storytelling. Storytelling helps us construct both individual and family identities. When we're telling our stories about our families, we are not just talking about who we are as a group, but also telling stories about what it means to be our individual selves in relation to our families. The Language of Me was not only about my quest for reconstruction of self-identity as a former abled young man now living with a severe disability, but also a glimpse into my family history. It was also about what it meant to me to be an individual self in relation to my family, right through the moments shared in our history. This book also explored and extended this concept of individual self-meaningfulness to my fresh quest for a newly defined self-repositioning inside my family of the disabled community. Relationships. Storytelling has been important in all cultures since the dawn of history as the primary medium for bringing people together. In that way, storytelling is a primary platform for raising awareness of social, economic, and political issues affecting people everywhere who have gathered in groups and circles around fires. Impact stories also put a visible face or name to our experiences, bringing forth our basic need for defined leadership to take us forward in the activation and fulfillment of our collective missions, vision, and purpose to grow in unity as a people. Storytelling also provides a glimpse into the collective meanings of those experiences we share as one in our communities. The Language of Me sought to raise awareness primarily of disability issues in my society. It has gone on to bring people, both disabled and able-bodied, together to talk about and confront the many stereotypes and lack of awareness that divide us. The book champions the argument that society has not necessarily supported and highlighted disabled people's aspirations, potentials, and capabilities. This book also allowed me a chance to position myself in one way or the other as the face or name of the disability experience, establishing me as a disability activist. The language of me challenged and guided me towards forging new extended relationships with other disabled individuals, their families and groups, so that we could all join hands in navigating the pathways to our individual and collective mission of group empowerment and purpose to live and not just exist, whilst also providing a glimpse into the impact and diverse meanings also contributed by other individuals with disabilities through their own missions, purposeful undertakings, which they implement in service to their various community needs and development issues. Culture. Language and storytelling are intertwined with social culture, as they both entrench and reinforce values necessary for the survival of any civilization. They are both mechanisms by which stories of a particular lifestyle are passed from person to person and on to future generations. I have absolutely no doubt that the language and storytelling methods I employed in writing The Language of Me have played their own significant role in shaping not just disability literature, ideology, and discourse, but also in confronting disableist practice in favor of positive disability culture and lifestyle in post-apartheid South Africa. Disablism refers to practices of prejudice, stereotyping, and institutional discrimination against disabled people. Over the past 28 years of democracy in this country, I have witnessed that disability is increasingly becoming or being seen as a positive cultural identity. Disability identity refers to possessing a positive sense of self and feelings of connection to or solidarity with the disability community. Identities help people make sense of different and distinct parts of their self-concepts. And identities also help solidify a sense of shared beliefs, traditions, rituals, and culture. Disability culture offers ways for people with different disabilities to pursue their individual aspirations as well as their shared goals, and is further about their visibility and self-value. As with many other groups in society, recognition by others comes with self-awareness of the cluster's differences and unities which exist within the group, and given their definition and significance by their language and stories. In the year 2014, The Language of Me was one of the books analyzed and critiqued by Dr. Ken Junior Liphenga for his PhD thesis titled Narrative Enablements, Constructions of Disability in Contemporary African Imaginaries, submitted to the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at Stellenbosch University, South Africa. In this academic text, Dr. Liphenga advances an argument that The Language of Me is the author's deliberate effort not only to tell his story, but to contribute to the creation of corrective images of disability. The book is about a personal project and an act of disability activism. You will find that on page 30. This learned gentleman could have not said it even more better. The Language of Me has since the year 2017 been prescribed as reading material for students taking disability as diversity academic module as a postgraduate diploma in disability studies within the Division of Disability Studies unit at the University of Cape Town, South Africa. I have even had a few special opportunities to engage with these inquisitive students, discussing and dissecting my book's thrust in engaging online classes. The pleasure to hear some, particularly the youth with disabilities, analyzing my expressions and attesting that they can relate to their meanings and messages as children of the same experience is always a magical feeling that elevates both me and my work. In June 2019, St. James Press published Disability Experience, Memos Autobiographies and Other Personal Narratives, Volume 1 and 2, a series that presents essays on 200 narrative works written by persons with disabilities. While most of the full population of those profiled authors are from the US, 1/3 of the works chosen for this literary project were by authors from elsewhere around the globe, with the language of me representing the South African and African disability experience. This simply concludes the fact that mine must have been one hell of a good story to tell, and must have also been narrated so well and exceptionally for that book to go that far. In conclusion, I wrote was
Colleagues, I think we have lost the sound from Mr. Zulu. Your sound, please.
Are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, let me start afresh. In conclusion, I wrote The Language of Me to provide a newly disabled person's first-hand experience and insight in what it was like for me to suddenly find myself living my days, moments, and dreams with a disability. And the rest is history. It was not only that I knew I had a good story to tell, but that I was also inspired by my conviction that impactful literary representations of experience, including disability, can lend a hand in presenting positive and empowering constructions of that particular experience. The language of me, the language and storytelling techniques I unleashed in penning that book have proven very successful in communicating a timeless story. Indeed, one that has been passed from person to person, from humble township mobile community libraries to the esteemed halls of academia, both nationally and internationally. One story that will certainly still be read and appreciated by future generations. It was a book written in motion so that my evolving experiences were captured as they were happening, and I was feeling their full and real intensity. Only in that fluid way of presentation, which also included the use of other natural creative storytelling techniques of poetry and intricately drawn artwork, could I confess the detailed truth about my state of mind and my deep, sometimes dark feelings as I surrendered myself to becoming an active participant in my continuing life's events as they were unfolding. And I also had no doubt that only in presenting my story in that liberal fashion could someone else be enticed to pick the book up to read and immediately feel compelled to pass its moving messages to others gathered around, like a true mobile message that it was always meant to be, right from the beginnings of its conceptualization and design process, and all the way to the present times of its now well-registered milestones. Today, close to 2 decades after its publication, The Language of Me has become a classic that many, again, both disabled and able-bodied persons, refer to as the primary inspiration behind their own decisions to start writing and telling their stories. And trust me when I say I've met so many people, some of them who have even published their books, who have even written in their books that it was because of the storytelling techniques and the impact of the story itself that compelled them to sit down and say, hey, maybe I also have a story to tell. And if I employed the best of techniques, it would come out as a good story to go to the library, which is exactly what we're talking about here today. I believe this is the case because The Language of Me was built on a solid foundation anchored by the 3 pillars of exceptional storytelling, which are shaping identity, building relationships, and influencing culture. The challenge to all of us as we celebrate South African Library Week, united as authors, editors, librarians, bookstore staff, booksellers, archive and record managers is, how do we revisit this basic foundation and the pillars of storytelling, which are built on impactful language, so as to see more exciting stories emerging to occupy their rightful place on our home coffee tables, proudly lined up on our library shelves and kept safely in our organizational archives and records for distant civilizations to access tomorrow. Thank you very much. And of course, all that I was reading out to you is going to be given to you as this presentation at the end of this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Zulu. A round of applause for him. What a fascinating and inspiring story to tell. And I like the fact that you, though we are not wishing that you are on the wheelchair as you are at the moment, but that had made us to share, made you to share with us the story today, because you indicated that you never thought of, you know, writing a story or writing a book for that matter. So thank you so much. It shows the power of language that you were indicating, that as South Africans, it helps us to adapt to this Rainbow Nation culture. Thank you for sharing the story. And we appreciate the token of appreciation at the end that you are saying each participant will be receiving at the end of this event. Thank you so much. Moving on.
And they are not only, sorry, they're not only going to be getting a copy of this presentation, but I'm also going to be giving to everybody an ebook copy of my second book titled Wheels on the Sole of My Shoes. Yes. Because in telling good stories, we also position ourselves at a level or medium where we can cough out even more. And I would like to believe that Wheels on the Sole of my soles of my shoes is also as good a book as The Language of Me, because it's built around those three pillars that I was talking about in my presentation.
Yes. Thank you so much. I think we deserve another round of applause. Thank you so much, Mr. Zulu. Moving on to our next presenter. That will be none other than our poet. Just a brief bio regarding Nthabiseng Jaros Jafta. Nthabiseng Jaros Jafta is an international performing poet, writer, author, translator, publisher, library book distributor, festival curator, and virtual planner, an artpreneur, and a creative strategist from South Africa, who is born in the Free State province, Bloemfontein. In 2022, she obtained her master's in creative writing alumni at Rhodes University in South Africa, and completed management and leadership program cum laude from University of the Free State Business School, Dream Girl Scholarship holder sponsored by the US Embassy Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, and member of the International Exchange Alumni US cohorts, an accredited facilitator, moderator, and assessor, ETDP 10348. Ms. Jafta is an elected deputy president of NWASA, which is the National Writers Association of South Africa. So Ms. Jafta is going to render us a poem. So let's welcome Ms. Jafta on the stage, please. Over to you, thanks.
Like a cycle in a wheel, what goes around comes around. Like a yo-yo in a spring, what goes up will eventually come down. Like 4 seasons, winter will always follow after fall, and spring will always come before summer. And that was intended, just like you being here is intended. Just like a prayer to bless your heart, a brilliant song to grab your breath and release you from all tension, a smile to show you how much I appreciate you, a chair to make you laugh and relax your mind from all chaos, even if it's just for a second. And that makes me no angel, just me that wanna lay a hand that has nothing to offer, me that wanna love, yet afraid of being loved, me that wanna travel places yet trapped by fear and paranoia, me that wanna be on that valley yet afraid to fall like that big stone rolling from that mountain high straight to the river Oops, and never be seen again. Me that wanna be with those I love, yet them busy dying on me, and all I'm left with is some memories following me wherever I go like some freaking shadow. As much as it's all hard though, me feeling like I'm floating, sinking in a pool of sorrows, hopefully things will fall into their rightful places through time, the therapy of all troubled souls. As soon as I cling tight to my faith and revisit my spirit zone and unleash my bravery, realize how much I'm worth, realize how beautiful and strong I am, realize that my spirituality is much, much more powerful than my physicality, hoping that that on its own will be an assistance for me to cross that breach, that on its own will be an assistance for me to run that longest marathon and reach the finish line, climb that highest peak, swim that deepest sea and fear no sharks, spread my wings and fly high. Even the sky shouldn't be the limit to what I can achieve. See, I want to be inspired, like new couples' heart beating as one, complementing each other like your body and soul. Only when the other one dies, the other one lives on. And the great part is you don't even need any amount of cash to get into your soul train and revisit your spirit zone. Ekare ke o bona mohlang ho, mohlang monene, megabo ya Basotho o ipepesitse. Tethana theka le dutse matswele se ka dithaba a eme pepenene. Mae shwe ka se shwe a se tenne mebala metla hakalo siana marena yona kopo ya bogadi. Fielo a le thathe moseme a ulohe a rwetse wona modianyewe a imametse pela mehaladi ntho e palesa tsa naheng. A se botle seboko mmangwana hae a feleditswe ke nkgono wa tsona ditloholo le ditloholwana a boka ba seng ba fetile le ho leboha tlatla matsholo mohlodi wa mahodimo le mafatshe hoba le fihlile ka jeno tsatsi leo Mosotho wa ikgopolang ebile a kgaba ka boikgantsho ba seo a leng sona. Hlompho e be dijo tsa moya, lerato, lebele pelong tsa bohle botho e be mantletse-ntletse. Hela ngwana mobu ka jeno o entse taba mehlaphe ya ntate e ka sakeng. O bile modisa wa nnete ho ba setsa o bonono botjhaba re tla ithuta ho tswa ho wena Mabasotho. Fela hopole he ho qoqa pina ya hao mme o iqoqe ka sebete. O qape bale ya hao o iqape ka boqhetseke. Morethethong wa hao o tjeke ka tjantjello hoba ke wena fela o tseba mo tswang, ke wena fela o tseba mo yang, ke wena fela o tseba maemo jwale he. So write your own song, sing it with conviction, at your own pace, walk it like you mean it, at your own tone, dance to your rhythm. For only you can stop that rain, and only you can break those chains, and only you can set you free. So own it, own your tale, own those powerful stories.
Wow. The power of language. We learn so many stories. Thank you so much, Ms. Jafta. And another round of applause for her colleagues. I hope you're still fastening your belt and enjoying. So let's move on to our next speaker, who is Dr. Dominique Santos. She is a senior lecturer in anthropology at Rhodes University, South Africa. Her scholarly work explores the intersection of music, play, dreaming, and ritual with intimate experiences of social change. She is interested in the place of indigenous knowledge systems as speculative methodology when working with life stories, archives, and heritage sites. Her anthropological trajectory has been following Sylvia Wynter, informed by a commitment to unsettle the coloniality of being, connecting the university as a public and intellectual space with the wider community and natural world it is part of. To this end, she has worked with children, organizations in underserved communities, and public organizations on projects to occupy space playfully, establish sustainable food systems that are rooted in the recovery of self-esteem and joy, and rethink monuments, collections, and archives, supporting creative interventions that permit alternative modes of experience space, self, and society to emerge. Dr. Santos combines academic inquiry with award-winning community engagement, and artist practice to generate conditions for collaborative anthropological approaches in community, heritage, public, and exhibition spaces that effect social change for the greater good. Wow. Without further ado, you have heard what our next speaker is all about. So let's welcome her on the stage. Over to you, Dr. Santos.
Thank you. I grew up in a library. I grew up in many libraries. My mother was a librarian. When I was 15 years old, I got my first job shelving books in Rosettenville Library in the south of Johannesburg. It was there in the library that I found the corrective to the distortions of a state education in the dying days of apartheid. Alice Walker, Isaac Asimov, Ursula Le Guin, and Maya Angelou showed me that another world was possible, that another version of me was possible, that another kind of future was possible. I'm very grateful to the library. When I became a young mother living in a council estate in London, it was the library that was my place of refuge with young children, a place, a public place in which I could explore and be protected from the mental ravages of new motherhood in a Western context in which that experience can be very isolating. It is the library as a public space, as a public good, as a public place of refuge, of discovery, of becoming, that I would like to share some stories with you today. In that library in London, it was not only I who found refuge. I remember at that time, many were arriving in the city, smuggled in by people in their backs of vans, seeking legal refuge from the ravages of war elsewhere. They would arrive in the park behind our estate. One man, I remember his Central Asian features, his beard, sleeping in a sleeping bag in the bushes in the park. And later in the day, I would see him in the library, having washed in the bathroom, having cleaned himself up, reading the newspaper, before finding his way into his new life after his travels. The library is a refuge. The stories are not just in the books, but in the people that enter the physical spaces of the library. I want to talk today about another project that happened back in 2017 when I was a postdoctoral researcher at the University of the Free State, and the ways in which we engaged with the space of the university library at the University of the Free State to engage the public through a collaboration with artist Matt Staub, Maya Mari, and Nomonde Busi in the project 21 Memories of Growing Up. I hope that by sharing some of the images and stories from this collaboration, I inspire us to think about how it is through bringing art into the libraries, into bringing collaborations with poets, storytellers, activists, children, the elders, that our libraries continue to have relevance and meaning as spaces for public encounter, a part of our commons, a part of our heritage, a part of what we are entitled to as those who inhabit and live in the cities, neighborhoods, rural areas, and all the places in which libraries manifest, mobile, static, and otherwise. 21 Memories of Growing Up was a work of art built from scores of individual memories. The methodology was based on asking participants to recall their coming of age. When did you turn 21? What happened during the course of that year, and how did you become an adult? It was initiated by Swiss artist Matt Staub, and the project was given a home in South Africa by writer and poet Maya Mari and actress and traditional healer Nomonde Mbusi. The artists first sat down with each of the participants to record their stories. 3 months later, they would return to film the storytellers listening to the edited audio recordings of their own memories for the first time. The resultant work produced a powerful identification between the viewer and the subject, and stands as a profound meditation on memory and storytelling and what it means to be human. Since 2012, when Staub first discussed these questions with the residents of an old age home in Frankfurt, Germany, he traveled the globe and held conversations with people of all ages and backgrounds in Germany, Switzerland, Serbia, Austria, England, Holland, and finally, South Africa. For the South African edition of 21, Staub collaborated with Mbusi and Mari, introducing them to his listening methodology, and they collaboratively produced 9 portraits. Mbusi and Mari subsequently produced a further 10 portraits. And so the exhibition that was brought to the library foyer at the University of the Free State in Bloemfontein was a combination of 2 bodies of work, 19 portraits of people who lived around South Africa, conducted in English, isiZulu, isiXhosa, and Sesotho, as well as a selection of portraits from people who lived in different European cities. Now, the University of the Free State at this time in 2017 was one of the oldest institutions of higher education in South Africa, having grown to almost 40,000 students. But it had also been a place where the ravages of Fees Must Fall and the transformations and possibilities of that student movement had truly taken effect, as well as the ways in which the institution had had to reckon with the violences, both intimate and public, of the aftermaths of apartheid, resulting in the establishment of the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, with whom the Department of Anthropology collaborated to bring this exhibition to the foyer of the library. I want now to simply take you through what this installation looked like in the foyer of the library and the ways in which it invited all kinds of people, all kinds of publics, all kinds of ages, classes, races, ethnicities, genders, beings, to engage and listen to the stories of others and to be part of a diverse tapestry of story, breaking the boundaries of race, class, and culture, and allowing people who had grown up in very different worlds to feel a deep connection with another human being. The library foyer became the place to be, to sit, to put on the headphones and listen to the stories and watch those who were telling the stories listen to their stories. There was an invitation to participate, to share emotions, impressions, and feelings that came up as these stories were shared. And what emerged over the week that the exhibition was installed was a powerful temporary exhibit of stories shared by those who had listened to the stories. Libraries as a space where public art, where encounters are made possible because of the public face of the library, show us how potent a place a library can be. We need stories to connect, and we need libraries as physical spaces to experience connection and to experience refuge and the safety of a place in which it is okay to explore, and it is okay to be quiet, and it is okay to talk, and it is okay to listen. I ask us all, as those who are invested in and love libraries, to truly, truly consider how we can creatively and imaginatively collaborate to bring the existing physical infrastructure of our library service into truly living alignment and public engagement. We must work with a range of collaborators to bring the living nature of the library alive as a public resource without any possibility to measure its value. As Chinua Achebe puts it, we must hear all the stories. And by hearing all the stories, we will find points of contact and communication, and the world story, the great story, will have a chance to develop. Thank you, everyone. It's very wonderful to be here and to hear all of your stories too. Thank you, Ashe.
Thank you, Dr. Santos. Do you perhaps have a video to play, or that is it?
That's it. But if anyone has any comments or questions, I've left some space for anything like that about this project. Yeah, so please feel free to use our final minutes together to, if you have any questions you'd like to ask. I'd like to invite some engagement now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Santos. It is pleasing as a librarian to also learn that as parent librarians, we instill the love of libraries and information and the love of reading to our children. So I'm proud of your mother, because now you are who you are because you were instilled by her as the librarian. And thank you so much. Indeed, we need stories to connect. Our LIASA president alluded to it earlier to say we need to collect all those stories so that we are also counted in the global stage. Thank you so much. And a round of applause for Dr. Santos. And as you can continue putting all the comments, the questions on the chat, we will have a look at that should time allows at the end of the event. Allow me now to move on to item number 10, which is entertainment.
Welcome to the library. I'm the librarian. Knowledge and wisdom is what I love sharing. The vastness of life experiences through reading is what I provide. And my arms, just like the doors of the library, are always open wide. I've come to take you on a magical ride. Publicly written patterns of innovation described. A good book is like medicine. It's like prescribed. I'm the librarian. Thousands of stories come to life. Literacy is lit, and well-written literacy is my eye. Books are my addiction, whether it's poetry, geography, science, or even fiction. My mind engages in a story of pages from beyond the ages. It's become my culture, my religion, my tradition. It's up to me, and it must to me, that all books be kept in superb condition. This has become my lifelong mission. To see every child reading a book should be all librarians' vision. I must reach every girl and boy. I don't discriminate with a rich or poor. I'm passionate about positivity and joy. If I don't act as soon as possible, books will be destroyed. For this purpose I surface, it's the main reason I'm employed. This work must be done to the best of my ability. I am the librarian. In everything I see a possibility. I read in between the lines of brainstorming for knowledge. Mentally, I challenge even the dark, from primary schools, high schools, all the way to college. I watch them grow and become bold. Like a potable clay, every single day, I start to mold. I'm the librarian. I'm here to empower communities. From a life that's extremely hard, I see the youth look down on themselves. It leaves my heart scarred. Out of my windows I look and see kids exposed to crime, drugs, alcohol, negativity has them shook. I've got to help them change and shape their beautiful minds. I take it upon myself to help bring about change, growth, ambition, dream, visionary, even if some say I'm pretty strange. Welcome to the home of collections of books. Take a seat, all you seek is on a shelf. You just need to take a closer look. Stephen King, William Shakespeare, I take a bite of their rights and I start to swallow. Books are for free, books are for free for you to borrow. History unraveled, across seas these books have traveled. A world unknown and mysteries that deeply baffled. A wide range of stories, we have endless categories. Titanic and sinking ships, right at the mercy of your fingertips. Draw closer to pictures painted and authors begin to take the biggest step. I am the librarian. Open a book and go on amazing adventures. Accessible recorded information and data to all library members. A database to archive that cannot be measured. A library of books is worth so much more than a chest of diamond jewels and worldly treasures. I am the librarian. I sell hopes and dreams. I am the librarian, and this is my only agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I must start by apologizing. I believe the sound was not that audible to all of us, but please note that we will put all the presentation and on the website online. So should you have not grasped all of what our entertainer was doing, please go visit our website for that poem. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 11, we are having a message of support from the National Library of South Africa, chairperson of the board, Ms. Refilwe Mabaso. So if Ms. Refilwe is here, please, yes, over to you so that you share with us the message of support. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much, Mrs. Nyoko, for welcoming me. Can you hear me? Please confirm.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for the beautiful and well-structured program. I would like to extend our gratitude as the National Library to have been invited, and special greetings to those who are here and to our acting DG, Mr. Vusi Themba Ndima. We greetings from us, the LIASA president, the LIASA president-elect, Mr. Charlie, councillors responsible for libraries who are also joining us, all the presidents who have had the opportunity to lead this honorable and noble organization. We also welcome you. We are excited that you are part of this event, and also all librarians who are here. Thank you very much for joining us, and also for giving yourself some time to come in here for what we have heard earlier on. Very inspiring, very exciting, and motivating as a librarian. It gives you some kind of courage to continue contributing and also working hard. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Good morning to all of you. It is a pleasure for us as the National Library to have been invited to this kind of an event which we associate with, and mostly we pride ourselves to this upcoming National Week of Libraries. To us, for being part of this event, it actually makes us to have an opportunity to reflect and also to continue telling our story as the National Library. As we gather here today to celebrate the power of libraries under the theme, Libraries Telling Powerful Stories, we have the wonderful opportunity to illustrate just how important libraries are in our communities and in every sphere of our lives. For many of us, libraries are a place to find books. Our previous speaker and all of those who have already spoken before me have made mention of the importance of books, of writing our stories, and also of making sure that they are accessible, available for others to read about. Have mentioned so much that I just feel that I wish we could actually learn from it and we can take it forward. Libraries are there to organize and ensure that we've got resources and we can be able to access them. They are there to provide, a space and opportunity for those who are studying, and also to connect with others and where we are able to share interests and share knowledge. But libraries also play a much deeper role in our society. They are a place where knowledge is preserved. And I think, as we all know, as librarians, and especially the National Library, their mandate of the National Library is to preserve our history as a country, as South Africans. And we must ensure that everything that is documented, it is available. And that means we are ensuring that we harvest our stories, the stories that are told, the stories that are still going to be told and which are documented. It is our role to ensure that they are preserved, they are conserved, and mostly they are also available for future reference. We are here to ensure that we remain to sustain, build, and mostly to make the corporate memory of this nation available for future generations. African communities have told stories orally since time immemorial. These stories are used to share news, amplify the accomplishments of heroes, pass on cultural traditions, and transfer knowledge and history. Stories often make difficult information easier to understand. When a story is told, it has emotions and is told with passion, and it is what remains as memories to all of us. Libraries have been a central point whereby stories are collected, are preserved, and shared. This is confirmed by the vast heritage collection at the National Library of South Africa. For those who had an opportunity to visit us, they can tell we have collected the stories and will continue to do so. Now the National Library was formed, as we all know, by the amalgamation of the two libraries. One of the two libraries was the South African Public Library, and the first public library in South Africa, which dates in the 1818. The South African Public Library is today at, it's in Cape Town, and it's known as the National Library Cape Town campus. And we've got the other campus in Pretoria. Ladies and gentlemen, we celebrate South African Library Week, mindful of the low reading for mean rate in our schools and the results of the South African Book Development Council study that revealed that only 5% of parents read to their children and 16% of adults in South Africa read for pleasure. We have just had a beautiful story from our previous speaker who knew how to read because the mother took her to the library. And today she's an advocate telling about the importance of reading. So that's a challenge for you as a parent, for you as a student, for you as an author, that reading is important. It takes us far. The National Library, in a bid to improve literacy levels in our country, will, in conjunction with the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture and the UNISA Department of Information and Science, be hosting the second biennial National Reading Summit from the 29th to the 31st March 2023. Kindly make yourself available to be involved in this one. The National Reading Summit aims to assess the role of literacy in the National Development Plan Vision 2030 and focuses on contributing to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the Agenda 2063 of the African Union to improve literacy in Africa. Linked to that objective set, the theme for the 2023 National Reading Summit is Nurturing Reading Cultures and Literacies in Post-Pandemic Ecosystem. Please visit the National Reading Summit website to register to attend the hybrid summit, which will be hosted in the dates that I've already made mention of. To better understand South African reading culture and the different ways and reasons that people read in our context and in the present moment, the National Library of South Africa has partnered with the Nalibali Trust to conduct the National Reading Barometer. We are looking forward to your involvement, and we are looking forward to you being an advocate to this project. You may ask, what is the barometer, and what is it that is going to achieve? In the context of this study, the barometer is an advocacy and awareness raising tool, which is informed by the information from credible data sources about the particular phenomena. In this case, the reading habits of South Africans will be tested. This credible data will inform efforts to grow reading culture and shapes the national conversation around reading. You as a stakeholder, you are invited. Stakeholders in the reading space will be able to use this data to inform strategies, policies, intervention, and activities that will inform the future of this country towards reading. Libraries like other galleries, libraries, archives, and museum institutions currently face many challenges, including funding constraints. We all talk about that, the provision of adequate and relevant material, infrastructure problems, access and connectivity challenges. We know those problems. Let's not forget vandalism. These challenges are not new, but do speak volumes. And what are we doing as librarians? However, libraries still have a strong resilience in these unfavorable conditions, which shows the importance of libraries and for us as librarians. Because irrespective of these challenges, libraries have the power to transform lives and communities. And that's because libraries are not just responsible of books, but for living and also for making future lives, breathing centers of learning and growth. They are places where people of all ages, backgrounds can come together to explore new ideas, connect with one another, and build brighter futures. So let us celebrate the powerful of libraries, and let us continue to invest in these vital institutions. Let us recognize that libraries are not just buildings, but beacons of hope and possibility for all who seek knowledge, connection, and inspiration. And let us commit ourselves to ensuring that libraries continue to thrive for generations to come. We have a legacy to lead. We have a legacy to lead. Let us continue to do that. In conclusion, as I close, I want to express my gratitude to the National Librarian CEO for the work he's doing in ensuring that we become the forefront and the forerunners of ensuring that we preserve, we conserve our stories together with his team, and also to the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture through you, the Acting Deputy Director, Mr. Ndima, that thank you for your contribution, and thank you for not forgetting to always put us in front before your programs, ensuring that we are on top of your list, and to ensure that we continue to support the likes of LIASA in the work that they do. As we conclude, we are saying to you, we are reaffirming as National Library to LIASA that we are committed to work with you on this exciting journey as we advocate the power of libraries and the power of telling our stories. Allow me to inspire you with this, with the words of the activist former Miss Maya Angelou, who continues to inspire us all with her words as we read as we continue to listen and to read her stories. And one of those quotations says, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." You have a story to tell. Tell it. I have a story to tell. I will tell it. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for this opportunity, and also thank you to continue to do the good work that we are doing as LIASA and also as libraries. Thank you very much, Program Director, for the opportunity.
Wow, thank you, Ms. Mabaso, and for those inspiring words, words of encouragement that you shared with us as the National Library of South Africa. Indeed, from words of mouth to narratives, printed, written, and typed stories. And we are pleased as LIASA to learn that there are a vast collection of stories that the National Library has collected and is busy collecting and collaboratively, we are able to then increase the low reading that we experience as the country. Thank you so much for all those wise words. Now, a round of applause for our National Library of South Africa Chairperson of the Board. Thank you. Now moving on to item number 12, which is by Mr. Ndima, the DDG for Sport, Arts and Culture. We have our honor to call upon our DDG on the platform and to deliver the message of support. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Ms. Mokgadi Senyolo, the LIASA President, Mr. Nazim Hadi, LIASA President-elect, Mr. Charlie Mulepo, LIASA past presidents, the Chairperson of the National Library of South Africa, Ms. Refilwe Mabaso, the CEO of National Library, Mr. Kebi Madumo, members of the National Council for Library and Information Services, members of the Legal Deposit Committee, esteemed speakers who have come before me and spoke so brilliantly, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Maybe just to indicate, I'm sure you see the T-shirt that I'm wearing today. You would know that technocrats have a tendency, or technocrats like me, would wear suits to come and speak in these august events. But I want to say that I'm wearing this T-shirt very deliberately. It's our Netball Friday. This is a story in the making in our country because South Africa will be hosting Netball World Cup between the 28th of July to the 6th of August, 2023. I'm saying this is a story in the making because it is the first of its kind in South Africa and in the continent. So this is part of awareness creation. But let me now get to the task that I've been assigned to do today. I start by extending my warmest greetings to everyone who is tuned in today as we launch the South African Library Week Celebrations 2023 under the theme, Libraries Telling Powerful Stories. The theme took me back to the images of Ogogo Nomkulu sitting around the fire with their grandchildren narrating beautiful stories. These storytelling sessions were a highlight of every child's evening. The theme also reminds us about the importance of reading and storytelling from the early developmental stages of a human being. For example, mothers reading a story to their newborn babies. Over the years, I've observed in appreciation the passion and enthusiasm that colleagues in the library sector have, more especially during this week. It is therefore my singular pleasure to help kick off this year's celebrations of the Library Week. Our country has many inspirational stories to tell, like the stories of the women of 1956, the Sharpeville Massacre, the youth of 1976, to name but a few. These stories show us how much of a resilient people we are. They are stories of hope. They are stories of perseverance and stories of strong will. However, our most beautiful story to tell as a country is that of our transition to democracy. Although the road to freedom was long, painful, and tragic, but our transition to democratic rule has earned us the respect of the world. This will remain a relevant story for many generations to come. Our libraries are the local repositories of knowledge that share and promote these stories to ensure the appreciation of our history and culture. Libraries are about stories, both factual and fictional. The beauty of stories is that they take the listener down memory lane on a journey of imagination. They allow the mind to explore the endless possibility. It is through stories that we can tell the beauty of our cultures and traditions, and to ensure that our heritage stays alive. Each book in a library tells a story and takes the reader on a journey with them. Therefore, libraries are playing an integral part in building socially cohesive communities by creating a bridge between generations. The celebration of the South African Library Week coincides with the Human Rights Month commemoration. The theme for the month is consolidating and sustaining human rights culture into the future. The month of March is used to promote respect for basic human rights for all and restoring human dignity in line with the Bill of Rights, and honor those who fought for our liberation, and to celebrate the many rights guaranteed under our Constitution that we continue to enjoy today. We're grateful for the many resources that are being made available to communities to promote human rights months and activities, and to further assist in the recording of our oral history, which will be documented and preserved in libraries. Maybe I would not be amiss to repeat what my chairperson of the National Library of South Africa said about Maya Angelou, a world-famous author, a poet, dancer, singer, activist, and a scholar who once said, I quote, "Once again, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." End quote. It must be our primary task as a sector to create the right environment for all to tell their stories. Since 1994, public libraries have played a critical role in the transformation of our country by providing space and educational resources to learners to support quality educational outcomes. The increased significance of accessing information for lifelong learning and recreational purposes gave rise to the first government contribution of 200 million rands in 2007-2008 financial year to address the deteriorating services or service levels and lack of funding in the country's public and community library sector. Until today, government is still committed to support the library and information services sector to ensure continued provision of services to citizens. Indeed, we have a good story to tell. An amount of 4.9 billion rand is earmarked in 2023-2024 medium-term expenditure framework to, amongst other priorities, continue to provide and improve public library infrastructure, including information, communication technologies, ICT, purchasing of library material in all formats, including material for print-disabled readers. In 2023-2024, the department has been allocated 1.5 billion to further transform the library infrastructure, facilities and services, and in partnership with provincial departments, we are planning to support the building of 32 new libraries and refurbish 45 existing libraries. 15 new services for visually impaired will be established. The grant has to date built 238 new libraries and upgraded 652 existing library structures. These libraries provide conducive spaces for storytelling, which is essential for early childhood development. Our toy libraries provide imaginary make-believe learning and allows for the best storytelling setups. Our libraries support book clubs, which are also used to tell stories. Through the grant, over 2,500 library professionals have been employed. This is also one of our good stories to tell. The grant continues to stock libraries with updated library material, and through the National Library of South Africa, the South African classics will be reprinted and made accessible in libraries. These classics tell the ancient stories of our country in indigenous languages. It is through these kinds of initiatives that the department ensures that our heritage lives on through storytelling. To ensure inclusiveness, our libraries offer visually impaired services to the visually impaired citizens. Braille and audio materials are accessible in our mini libraries across the country. These services ensure that the blind community is also provided with the opportunity to listen to the beautiful stories of the world and are also able to tell their own stories. It is for these reasons that the celebration of Library Week should serve as a reminder that libraries are a powerful resource towards the provision of access to information, more especially to the disadvantaged communities. Access to free internet services has never been so important during this time where learners are dependent on libraries to support their educational projects, to stay in touch with friends and family, or even enjoy the digital entertainment. The department has initiated a process to review the National Archives Act, the National Council for Library and Information Services Act, and the Legal Deposit Act. These three pieces of legislative frameworks are the cornerstone through which access to information is grounded. The review of these legislative frameworks is informed by technological developments and policy changes around the Copyright Amendment Bill. We encourage the sector to participate fully in the review process to ensure that all voices are heard. The department acknowledges the commitment, hard work, and dedication of librarians and all the practitioners and professionals in the sector. Even though we are aware of our challenges like funding constraints sometimes, for example, we must continue to advocate for libraries and claim our place in the fourth industrial revolution. We need to showcase the relevance, the benefits, and importance of libraries in the digital spaces. We are all storytellers in our own right, whether professional or not. Let us continue to encourage each other and tell stories of hope, community development, resilience, and many more. Let us tell stories which will build our society and encourage social cohesion in our beautiful country. I wish you all a beautiful and successful week and the weekend. And I thank you. I thank you so much.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Ndima, our DDG for Sport, Arts and Culture. Thank you so much for reminding us how rich we are as a country, that we have so many inspirational stories to tell. And indeed, it will be pleasing if one walks in any library or information service to a documentary or a book of some sort that talks about our country, the stories that we had in the past and the stories that we still have to build on in our collection of the country. Thank you so much. Indeed, all of us has got stories to tell in our own rights. We really appreciate what you have shared with us, and thank you so much. Moving on, we are coming towards the end of our program for today. And as you are aware, today is the launch of the South African Library Week 2023. And that means all our libraries, all our information services, they will be able to celebrate their own library week, the South African Library Week, in their own respective institutions throughout the week and beyond the month. Also to note that there are interviews that will be taking place in our various radios Just tune in, watch out, visit the LIASA website to check the times, and also on TV, in the other newspapers and so on. So it is all about telling our stories for the Library Week, and we are all going to share and listen and hear our respective stories in narrating and related in so many platforms. So you are invited to visit all those platforms, tune in and listen to all the stories that are told, the powerful stories that are going to be told. Allow me to then move on to our last item on the agenda. And before I hand over to our president-elect, Mr. Charlie Moleko, allow me to thank you very much for your attention, for your tentative stories that you have shared with us. And I hope our members, our participants have enjoyed this launch. So we're going to extend it to our various places. So over to you, Mr. Moleko, our LIASA president-elect, to do the vote of thanks and closure. Thank you. Please unmute.
Thank you, Program Director. Greetings, colleagues. Greetings to LIASA President, the Representative Council and its executive. Deputy Director General, Mr. Ndima. Okay, Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Rebecca, am I audible?
Yes, you are. You can continue. Can you hear me? Because we can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Then I'll start from scratch. Greetings to the President, Representative Council and its executive, Deputy Director General, Mr. Ndima, Chief Director, Pulenkekana Rose Pasha from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, National Library of South Africa, Chairperson of the Board, the National Librarian in absentia and colleagues from the National Library. I've seen the immediate past president and the past presidents that are on the platform. Our current acting manager in the office, who is also former president of the association, Ms. Rachel More, captain of the industries, South African Library, SALW 2023 Organizing Committee, representative from Chelsea, provincial libraries heads and their representatives, municipalities, councillors, librarians and directors. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pass a sincere word of gratitude to the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture for their continued support in celebrating this important week in our heritage calendar. And our sincere thanks goes to the ministry. They have been steadfastly in supporting this event over the years. Our sincere appreciation also goes out to Sabinet for their continued support. The National Library, amongst the sponsors for this year, it's also National Library of South Africa, Universal Knowledge Software, Nevada LMS, EBSCO. To the organizing committee, I think it would be proper for me to introduce the whole committee. Maybe they can switch on their cameras as I hope they can switch on their cameras as I introduce them. I will have to use another laptop. Okay, it's fine. The committee is chaired by yours truly, and we have Anna Marie Gossen. We have Marcus Mapile from the National Library of South Africa. We have Shanita Bim. We have Linda Ntaka, Tani Malan, Wandile Malinda from Mpumalanga. We were later joined by Fatima Daris, Kehomoditswe Puti, and the new acting manager, Rachel Mure. This committee worked since last year after the conference to make sure that this day is a success. Our initial plan was to have a face-to-face launch this year. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, we were not able, and we had to revert back to a virtual launch. And it's such a wonderful theme. And as you have seen on the guest that we had, our sincere thanks to Mr. Musa Zulu. We'd like to say thank you very much, Makeba, for the wonderful message that you gave to us, and the wonderful donation of the ebook Wheels on the Sole of My Shoes. And all attendants will also get a link of his high definition video when he was speaking at the South 32 Hillside Aluminium in August 2019. In that video is titled Disability, a Graduation from Acceptance to Embracing. This link you can share with your clients in your own libraries. It's a 45-minute video that you can play that shows the power of rising above disability. Thank you to Dr. Santos. It came for me with good memories. I remember quite well that display in our library foyer in 2017. It was a buzz of activity in that foyer where we're listening to stories throughout the whole world, coming from the whole world. And lastly, colleagues, I would like to say thank you very much to the National Library of South Africa, chairperson of the board, and the National Librarian for everything that they've done for us, for the speech, for the encouraging message, very informative, and also the activities that the National Library is currently engaged in. To the DDG, we are blessed. We were blessed. We were thinking that, is it possible for you to make time in your busy schedule, especially now that we have seen the appointment of the new minister? We know you must be very busy. For the very fact, that's why we had offered you the opportunity to even record the message, if you could, for you to make time aside to come and address us. It was a huge honor. Thank you, and thank you very much. To our poets, Ntabiseng and Craig, what wonderful poems. Colleagues, we are blessed as librarians to have such colleagues in our midst. To Kuro School, we say thank you very much for the wonderful music that you have given us. Colleagues, good things are happening in the library space. Good things are happening. Those of you who are not watching news, you might have missed that there was a government gazette that was gazetted in September 2021, where it was indicated that towards the professionalization of local government or municipalities, all librarians, all people working in the library need to be members of a professional association. In this case, it has to be LIASA. So that is a message. Please share with your colleagues in your workspace. The Government Gazette is its number 890 of 20 September 2021. It talks about the professionalization. It mentions all different designation in the library sector and in the municipality sector, and which association they must ensure that they. Lastly, I would like to thank SABC, although we are paying them, but they've come out. They've come out in a nice way this year. They gave us huge discounts to be able to project the message to the community. We had since Monday a live reads from 7 stations. Coming next week, we'll be receiving a number of interviews that will be done by the president with SAFM Radio 2000, by myself in Radio Ukhozi, Radio Zulu, and by also in Radio Sesotho by a colleague from Rep Council. So let's keep, and also we are going to have our DigiMag published on IOL, and it will remain on the website, and we'll also share the DigiMag on our website. Please go through those stories and listen. Yesterday at our institution, we were launching the library in collaboration with Humanities. We were launching a book by Professor Odendal. It was also telling a story, a wonderful story of the ANC, how they got into the discussion. The title of the book says, "All Wars End at the Table, at the Negotiation Table." Dear Comrade President, Oliver Tambo, and the foundation of South African Constitution. In that story, we had the privilege of listening to stories that were shared by Judge Albicells, Advocate Piccoli, Professor Nittling, and Professor Lacharampod, who were relating stories, real stories about. There is a saying that until the lions can write their own stories, the hunters will be the heroes. With these few ways, I would like to say thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for your attendance. Let's go to our libraries. Let's support all the launches as they begin in earnest on Monday. Thank you, colleagues. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Colleagues.